Paul McAuliffe, wishes to discuss the unfinished development in Heathfield Estate in Finglas, Dublin 11, and the need for it to be taken in charge. Deputy McAuliffe.
Minister, as Government TD who's supported housing, I welcome 69 new units which will be developed in Capafin and launched by Fingal County Council very soon. I suppose the real regret is that in order for anyone to access that estate, in order for the Caherlock of Fingal County Council to cut the ribbon, or me to attend the opening ceremony, or indeed many of the families to enter that estate and to live there, they would have to travel through the Heathfield estate. Now, we all know the issue of estates that haven't been taken in charge by local authorities, but for more than 10 years, for more than a decade, this estate has suffered from all of the classic characteristics that we see in an estate that hasn't been taken in charge. The roads are unfinished in many places and need to be resurfaced. There are green spaces and undeveloped spaces which are unsafe for children and which pose an eyesore in the community. There are footpaths that are unfinished, and there's a playground that is in a perilous state, a really dangerous state, which the equipment is there. Now, look, it's very simple. Fingal County Council have not moved quickly on this estate over the decade, and I think we'll accept that. I have no doubt that the new development has given them impetus, and recently, as early as Christmas, an area was cleared and hoarded off, and a planning enforcement notice has been issued against the developer against that site, and there's an unfinished element of it where 3 retail units were due to be developed. Look, Minister, all of this, I think, in some ways, I'm scratching my head how on the floor of the Dáil I'm raising these issues with a government minister. But I implore you to do everything you can in order to ensure that Fingal County Council take those necessary steps in order to take the estate in charge and to help resolve some of those issues. And in no way do I expect the developer to get off the hook on the financial obligations which they have an obligation to fulfil, nor do I expect the local authority to take those responsibilities. But we have to be realistic that after more than a decade, there are going to be things which will be done and there's things that won't. And in order for us to maintain this community in a manner which you should, and allow the new residents that are going to access it, that are going to drive over these roads that aren't completed, then Fingal County Council must do what it needs to do in order to secure the estate. The residents here are incredibly frustrated, Minister. I met with them there just 2 weeks ago on a Saturday morning. I expected there to be 2 or 3 residents, and when in fact there were more than 25 came out to meet me. People are really frustrated, they're angry, they're giving up. They can't concentrate on nice things like family fun days and clean-ups and really good work in terms of environmental projects because the very basics aren't there. And also, they don't have the trust and confidence to work with the local authority, and we know that many community groups need that trust and confidence to do really good stuff in their area. So I think we need to allow them move on, we need to allow them do the work, we need to allow them welcome their new neighbours into the estate, but to do all of that, Fingal County Council have a lot of work to do, and I hope that the Minister and Government will assist them in doing that.
Minister.
Thank you, Ken Corda and Deputy, and again on behalf of the Minister for Housing, I'm going to answer this. Thank you for raising this important issue on the taking in charge of private housing estates by local authorities. So with regard to the specific development in the Deputy's constituency, I have to emphasise that under Section 30 of the Planning and Development Act 2000 as amended, that the Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage is specifically precluded from exercising any power or control in relation to any particular case in which a planning authority or the board is or may be concerned. So my comments today on the Minister's behalf must at all times be general, and they will refer to the process in relation to taking in charge of housing estates, and I won't refer to the specific estate that's mentioned in the Deputy's motion. So firstly, all planning authorities are required to have a policy on taking in charge within their respective functional area, and that's in accordance with Planning Circular PD 108, which was issued on the 26th of February 2008. Secondly, the legislative process for taking in charge of housing estates by local authorities is set out in Section 180 of the Act, and the prescribed process in this regard applies to residential developments consisting of 2 or more dwellings that have been granted planning permission under Section 34 of the Act. Under Section 181 of the Act, the Planning Authority is obliged to initiate the taking in charge process where requested by either the developer or by the majority of owners of the dwellings in the estate in question. However, this is subject to the development being completed to the satisfaction of the authority and in accordance with the permission and any conditions attached thereto. where developments have not been completed to the satisfaction of the Planning Authority, and where enforcement proceedings in this connection have not been commenced by the Planning Authority within 4 years of the expiry of the planning permission relating to a development, Section 182A of the Act provides that the Planning Authority shall, where requested by the majority of owners of the houses involved, initiate the taking in charge procedures under Section 11 of the Roads Act 1993 as amended by the Roads Act. And where this particular approach is being progressed, the authority may apply the security or the development bond that was provided as part of the planning application for the purpose of ensuring the satisfactory completion of the development. And with regard to estates which have not been completed in a satisfactory way, local authorities have been advised to draw up a priority list of requests from residents for the taking in charge of estates within their functional areas, taking into account such factors as the date of the request, the condition of the estate, the length of time that it has been left in an unfinished state, and the funding resources available to complete such estates. And furthermore, where the calling in of the development bond is not possible, Section 182A of the Act provides that the initiation of the taking in charge procedures under Section 11 of the Roads Act shall not preclude the planning authority concerned from pursuing a developer for any costs incurred by the authority in respect of necessary works undertaken on a development to enable it to be taken in charge by that authority. So in order to conclude, the taking in charge process where the development has been deemed to have been satisfactorily completed, a local authority is required to make a declaration under Section 11 of the Roads Act following a proposal by the Executive. The making of such a declaration, which effectively confirms that the authority is prepared to take over responsibility for the ongoing maintenance of the public works elements of the estate, is a reserved function of the elected members of a local authority. And therefore, the decision to take any particular estate or estates in charge is ultimately one for the elected members of the local authority, who, by way of declaration made under the Roads Act, will make such a decision. And in addition, it should be noted that the financial decision-making and the accountability of local authorities is a matter for the elected members of a local authority who have direct responsibility in law for all reserved functions of the authority, which includes the adoption of the annual budget of the local authority. In this regard, Section 103 of the Local Government Act 2001, as amended, provides for the local authority budgetary process. It is a matter for each local authority to determine its own spending priorities in the context of the annual budgetary process, having regard to both locally identified needs and the funding resources available to the local authority, and this includes the taking in charge of housing estates.
Just before Deputy McAuliffe comes in, Minister, I'm just a little curious. I certainly understand Section 30 of the Planning and Development Act, which precludes the Minister for involvement in any planning application or planning decision, whether by the local authority or the board. But this is not a planning matter. This is something that arises in the aftermath of the planning permission being granted, and it's if you like, an essential detail around the completion of the development, separate from the planning process. Deputy McAuliffe.
Gorda, you got in ahead of me. I was going to make the same point, but it comes with more force when you make... Yeah, well, when it's made from the chair, it's certainly more helpful. Look, Minister, I think I would ask you to reflect on that portion of it, but I do take your comments in the tone that they're made, because what they are essentially saying is that often in Ireland we do not devolve enough responsibility to local authority, and we do not give them the powers to pursue it. I think what you have said here is that this is a matter both for the executive and for the elected members of the local authority, and I would expect them to follow through on the procedures that are available to them in the first part, and secondly, in terms of applying additional funding and priority for them. You said that the local residents should identify the issues that are required, and they have done that, Minister, and they are very simple. The old builder's yard, which is adjacent to the entrance, they want to know what the plans for that are. There's 3 retail units planned on this site. They want to know, will they go ahead and who will develop them, and if they're not, will it be reseeded and grassed? There's relevant internal roads that are due to be resurfaced. They've asked, when will that happen? The kids' playground, which I mentioned, needs to be renovated and brought up to purpose. And the green areas in front of the Heathfield view is surrounded by fencing, and that's attracting illegal dumping. As I say, these are all matters perhaps best dealt with at a local authority meeting, and it's with frustration that we bring them here to the House. But I would ask you, Minister, to see whatever role you can, given the Count Corda's direction, and perhaps with the comments that I've made today, that whatever role the Minister can play perhaps in just communicating the frustration which I brought to you here directly to Fingal County Council, and to say to them that the matter has been brought in front of the Minister, and to outline the procedure which you've outlined here. And I will be informing them that I expect every step to be followed. As I say, there's a good news story here with the addition of 69 houses. It's a very bad story when they have to enter through an estate which is unfinished.
Minister. Thank you. So I note your view, Count Corla, and also of the Deputy on the meaning of the Act, and I just note that the Minister for Housing has asked me not to refer to the specific development, but to speak in generalities, and I think we really can manage this case by sticking to the generalities of the case. As the Deputy said, there is devolved power in this case, and it's a devolved power to take in charge following a majority vote from the members who are living in, from the residents of the estate, and secondly, there is the power to set budgets. So the Fingal County Council sets its own rate. It has a large rates base, including the airport, and it also sets its own property taxes. And in doing so, it can decide then how it's going to spend its money. And I don't think it is good to leave an estate in an unfinished state, or to leave it in a way which is leading people to have a poor quality of life and so on. And you've described in detail what the issue is there. Taking in charge of housing estates is a reserved function of elected members of local authorities, and ultimately it is also a reserved function of local authorities to set their own budgets. These are important functions that the elected members of a local authority are responsible for and oversee. So ultimately, the progression of individual developments through the taking in charge process is a matter for the relevant housing developer, the owners of the properties in such developments, and the relevant local authority to consider on a case-by-case basis following the procedure set out in Section 180 of the Planning and Development Act. And I will take your frustration to the Minister, and I'd also say to any local authority, Fingal or any others, that they are responsible for taking in charge estates, particularly in a case where the residents wish it to be taken in charge, where it has not been taken in charge for a long period of time, where there's any sense that it is unsafe or that it is leading to poor quality of life, and that they should set their policies around taking in charge appropriately, and that they should use their budgets appropriately and direct them towards resolving that situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you to you, Minister Smith and Minister Butler, for being here, and Deputy McAuliffe and the other colleagues for raising these matters. We move now to the motion regarding a report entitled Report on Section 481, Film Tax Credit. Now, I understand Deputy Barry Cowan is to move the motion, is that correct? Deputy Boyd Barrett, you're moving it, are you? Good stuff. Over to you then, sir.
Yeah,
you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Count Corla. And Deputy Cowan sends his apologies, but was unavoidably detained.